What is Sulu Sultanate? The Sultanate of Sulu is a Muslim state that ruled over many of the islands of the Sulu Sea in the southern Philippines. Though Muslim historians believe the Sultanate of Sulu existed centuries earlier, in the time of Raja Baginda Ali, genealogical sources place the founding of the Sultanate in 1457. During the 17th century, an increase in Western commercial activity in China resulted in a rising demand for maritime and forest products from Sulu. And during the 18th century, Sulu maintained a steady tributary relationship with China. In 1768, Sulu had become the center of trade network extending from Mindanao and southern Palawan to the northern coast of Borneo and southward into the Celebes Sea. Jolo emerged as an exchange center for slave trading throughout Southeast Asia. Based on slave raiders, the economy of Sulu expanded and its export trade increased. Between 1768 and 1848, foreign trade increased until Sulu's hegemony extended over the islands that bordered the western peninsula of Mindanao in the east to the modern Malaysian state of Sabah, formerly North Borneo, in the west and south, and to Palawan in the north. In 1851, the Spanish in Manila began launching attacks which destroyed the Sulu trade network, and Spanish troops overran the city of Jolo and built a walled garrison there. In 1898, after the Spanish defeat in the Spanish-American War, United States troops occupied Jolo. In 1903, Sulu was made part of Moro Province, but it remained under military rule until 1914. In 1915, Sultan Jamil Kairum II, 1894 to 1915, relinquished all claims to secular power, and sovereignty formally passed to the Philippine state. The region, known today as Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, continues to be plagued by political unrest and poverty. The issue of who would be the legitimate Sultan of Sulu is disputed by several branches of the royal family, although the line of succession fell in Akira, branch of the royal family from 1823 up to the death of the last sovereign sultan in 1936. History of Sulu Sultanate. The Tausug first appeared in the Sulu Islands in the 11th century. Sulu is mentioned in Chinese sources as early as the Yuan dynasty in the year 1271 to year 1368, and the Ming Annals contain an account of a tributary mission from Sulu. Genealogical sources place the founding of the Sulu Sultanate in the mid-15th century. During the 1450s, Sharif or Hashim Said Abu Bakr, an Arab born in Johor, arrived in Sulu from Malacca. In 1457, he married into the royal family of Sulu and founded the Sultanate of Sulu. He then renamed himself Paduka Maulana Mohasari Sharif Sultan Hashim Abu Bakr. Paduka is a local term for master. During the 17th century, an increase in Western commercial activity in China resulted in a rising Chinese demand for products from the sea, particularly trepang or sea slugs, Polythuria spp, a popular ingredient for soups and medicines. Trepang fisheries developed throughout the Sulu Islands, and it is believed that at one time, as many as 20,000 persons were employed in the labor of harvesting and drying sea slugs for export to China. Other valuable commodities for trade with China were pearls from coral reefs around the islands, shark fin, rattan, bird's nests for soup, camphor, and during the 18th century, mother of pearl. Between 1727 and 1763, the Sulu Sultanate sent at least 5 missions to offer tribute to the Chinese court, indicating that regular diplomatic relations existed between them. In 1703, other sources say 1658, the Sultanate of Sulu received North Borneo from the Sultan of Brunei, after Sulu sent forces to assist him against a rebellion in Brunei. In the same year, Sulu gave Palawan to Kudarat, Sultan of Maguindanao, who married a Sulu princess and formed an alliance with Sulu. Sultan Kudarat eventually ceded Palawan to the Spanish Empire in 1705. Expansion and decline. By 1768, Sulu had become the center of trade network extending from Mindanao in southern Palawan to the northern coast of Borneo and southward into the Celebes Sea. Jolo emerged as a center for slave trading throughout Southeast Asia. Ships were outfitted in Sulu's harbors with munitions, and slaves were traded there for cloth and firearms. Based on slave raiders, the economy of Sulu expanded, and its export trade increased. Between 1768 and 1848, foreign trade increased, with Sulu harvesting more maritime and jungle products to trade for war supplies, cotton cloth, and opium, brought by British merchants from Singapore and Calcutta, Chinese from Manila, and Portuguese from Macau. During the first half of the 19th century, Sulu faced increasing competition from Manila and sought to expand its trade with the Western powers. In 1848, James Brooke, governor of Labuan, signed a treaty of friendship with Sultan Muhammad Fadlia, 1848 to 1851. The Spanish government in Manila launched retaliatory attacks, and in 1851, Sulu defenses were overrun and the Sultan was forced to sign a treaty that would have made Sulu part of the Spanish colony of the Philippines if it had been honored. The Spanish pursued this treaty no further until 1871, when they attempted to subjugate Sulu by bombarding coastal villages, blockading Holo, destroying native boats and taking their crews prisoner. Sulu did not capitulate. In 1875, the Spaniards sent 9,000 soldiers to destroy Holo town and several Tausug outposts, then establish a garrison and rebuild Holo as a walled city. These attacks effectively destroyed the Sulu trading network and put an end to slave raiding. Chinese merchants began to leave Sulu, and by the end of the 1880s, Sulu had ceased to be a significant trading center. In 1898, after the Spanish defeat in the Spanish-American War, United States troops occupied Holo. In 1903, Sulu was made part of Moro Province, but it remained under military rule until 1914. In 1915, Sultan Jamil Kiram II, 1894 to 1915, relinquished all claims to secular power, and sovereignty formally passed to the Philippine state.
Sulu, the soul of a once respected and powerful Muslim kingdom, stretching from the southern Philippines to North Borneo, now Sabah in Malaysia. But that was centuries ago. Now it's more known as the poorest and among the most volatile provinces in the Philippines. But Muidzul Lail Kiram wants to change all that and bring back the glory days.
Okay, welcome to my wreck castle.
This man's home is literally his castle. Butch, as he is more commonly called, is the Sultan of Sulu and Sabah. Descended from a long royal line of leaders whose ancestors once had power of life and death over their subjects. But this royal family now lives in squalor, despite receiving their share of the rent Malaysia pays for Sabah. $12 a year doesn't help much in sustaining the upkeep on this home, and barely enough is made on the side to feed the 7 royal children. At the Sultanate's office, Butch's uncle Ismail holds court. He too is the Sultan of Sulu and gets a cut of the Sabah rent money, as do around 150 other relatives. Malaysia pays $1,800 every year, divided among the original Sultan's heirs, the amount unchanged for over a century. 8 claim the throne, each with his own paperwork that proves he is the legitimate Sultan.
This is Darul Jambangan, the Palace of Flowers, all that's left of what was once the seat of the Sultanate of Sulu. It's buried so deep in the jungle now that most of the locals don't even know it's here.
Like the claim for the return of Sabah, the heirs of this broken kingdom feel the Philippine government has buried the issue to maintain cordial ties with Malaysia. Their dreams for a Muslim heartland decaying beneath the undergrowth. But Sultan Butch is eager to pass on the royal legacy to his sons.
Ang Malaysia, Muslim.
Like Malaysia, he says, we are Muslims too. We can work this out. If they speak to us directly and give us back Sabah, we could reinstall the kingdom.
No one can revoke this document except God.
Sultan Ismail agrees. He believes the fight for Sabah isn't about asking Malaysia for more money. It would give Filipino Muslims back a part of their ancestral home. It belongs to us, he says. Our late father told us not to let it go, so we want it back. For the residents of Sulu struggling with daily life, the sun has long set on the Sultanate. For many here, the would-be kings are but shadows, building castles in the air. Marga Ortigas, Al Jazeera, Mayumbong, Sulu, Southern Philippines.
Case for the Sulu Sultanate. Currently, the issue of who would be the legitimate Sultan of Sulu is disputed by several branches of the royal family. Although the line of succession fell on the Kiram branch of the royal family from 1823 until the death in 1936 of the last sovereign sultan, Sultan Jumalur Kiram II, who died leaving no direct male heir. More than a dozen men claim to be the heir to the throne of Sulu. One of these, Prince Rodinhood H.J. Kiram, has mounted a legal challenge alleging that the British were obligated return Sabah to the Sultan of Sulu instead of ceding it to Malaysia, since the disputed territory came under British dominion through a temporary lease agreement negotiated by the British North Borneo Company. Another challenge claims that when the Philippines was annexed by the United States in 1898 as a result of the Spanish-American War, the Sulu Islands and the island of Mindanao were not specifically included. The internal government of the Sulu Sultanate has often been misunderstood or misinterpreted by outsiders, especially during the past half-century, when Spanish, American and Filipino-controlled administrations in Manila have been endeavoring to limit the powers of the Sulu rulers and to incorporate the Sultanate into the regular Philippine government. Flag of Sulu Sultanate according to Pierre Sonorat. Merchant flag of the Chinese community in the Sulu Sultanate. A war flag of the Sulu Sultanate at the end of the 19th century. The official flag of the Sulu Sultanate under the guidance of Ampun Sultan Mudzul Lail Tan Kairam of Sulu. Prepared by